upset last weekend. Let's see if Gale Force eSports can do the same versus Naventic. Gillinot back once again. Dread, last match, very dominant, nice, easy 3-0 victory for Team 8, even though we did have a 30-minute Battlefield of Eternity game and a bot in one of the games too. Now, Gale Force eSports, how likely do you see it that they're able to do the same?
I see this more likely than the first series of the day, purely just based on Naventic is probably the only team that has continued to struggle at the rate at which they have. That's not totally fair. They did make positive changes between part 1 and 2, but they were the only ones who weren't getting those wins the same way, getting the upsets over teams we projected them not to. So if that holds true, even though Gale Force was upset, I would say they're more likely to 3-0 than we saw Team 8.
Well, I have a lot to mention on the mindset of Naventic for this match, as well as the matches prior. But before we get to that, the North American standings, so we can see the difference between the two teams about to go head-to-head. Gale Force eSports sitting in the number 2 position, a long ways from the top. Tempo Storm continues to elevate their status there in the top of the standings. Team Naventic all the way down in the bottom. Still just one win away from catching up to No Tomorrow.
That's a big gap. 7-3 versus 2-8 of Naventic. And yet to get a win even in part 2 yet, right?
They did beat B-Step.
Ooh, that is true. Man,
but
that only hurts the math problem.
That was the old B-Step, remember? McIntyre said there's an old B-Step that played double support and the new one that we see.
Yeah, we got pre and post version of B-Step, and they weren't able to beat the pre version of B-Step. So they got that going for them, but I still feel like it's it's a lot to work out. Even with swapping Zuna and roles and the influence he's been able to have in the game, it does feel like you can see the work that they're putting in. It's just too little and too late.
I talked to Kenma, and I have to give a little bit of a backstory explaining the rules. In every matchup between two teams, they face each other twice within a phase, and one side in one of the matchup is the home team, and they get to pick the server, and then the other team gets first pick, and then we swap it the next time those guys face off. Team Naventic they feel that they are so disadvantaged when they cannot be on their home server. And it happened to be that in part 1 of this phase, they picked the server for the series versus No Tomorrow and Team Freedom, which is why those teams happen to be the teams that they needed to beat, right? They needed to be able to step up over, and they felt like they couldn't do it. They were going into those series feeling like it was going to be such a massive uphill battle because it wasn't their favorite server.
I think that's a fair perspective to have. I personally feel like it's I think Scapegoat, really, but I can see their perspective. I've known that they have been that vocal about the servers and that influencing their games for a while now. But yeah, they've kind of forfeited really everything moving forward if it doesn't benefit them, and they're going to put more focus into the series that they truly think they can base on the server.
Everything from here on out, I do believe, at least a lot of them, is on their home server. They get to choose. So they feel like the series that we see today versus Gale Force eSports will be more like their series versus B-Step, where they did pick the server. But it's Gale Force, right? And we're going to take a look at the battleground, the first battleground of this series. And we have to talk about Braxis. It's Gale Force getting Braxis. Braxis was not banned. Instead, bans on Warhead, bans on Sky Temple.
Oh, man. This actually, the Braxis pick, what this does is really neat for this series. Because for how maybe lopsided I'm kind of projecting this to be, this is the one spot where it's going to really test Gale Force. Based on the fact that I would argue a lot of the reason Gale Force struggled and received that major upset to No Tomorrow was based on their predictability. They came out part 2 with just we run 2 strategies. Week 1, nobody knew how to stop it. Week 2, some teams tried but didn't have the answer. Week 3, finally a team was like, nah, we've got this figured out. For most of the strategies, was able to do that and get that upset. So now, Braxis was one of those maps. Braxis was one of the maps where they showed a strategy, they ran it, and when things didn't work out, it just kind of crumbled very quickly. So now, if Naventic has figured it out, they put the faith and the work into the series itself, it might be an opportunity to stretch Gale Force a bit too thin. I'm looking for silver linings here.
I am too, and I think that is true. No Tomorrow, though, banned Braxis. So we have yet to see anybody actually defeat that strategy. And this was not the battleground ban for Naventic. They feel like whatever it is, they're going the Superstars method of saying, we know, we see you, and we can defeat you with that. But To the plight of Naventic, I asked Kenma, you know, you guys are very likely to be in the Crucible at this point. He says, we know that, and we are preparing for it. We just want to have all of our individual team issues sorted out by that time. So even though they are going up against Gale Force and Tempo Storm this weekend, they are far more focused on their own play than preparing anything specifically versus either of these teams.
Well, they've got a couple of weeks to figure it out. Falstad is going to be the first ban there for Naventic, and Tassadar on the side of GFE. The strategy we know Gale Force will run on Braxis holdout is the double global with the Zagara. 3-2 split, pressure out the top lane, abuse the globals, rotate around. And once the map opens up, the 2 first forts, it just felt like nobody could deal with the pressure between a Falstad and a Zagara. So removing half the equation here by just banning out the Falstad.
And I wonder what that does to Gale Force, because those drafts were exact. 2 times picking the same 5 heroes. Muradin, Falstad, Lucio, Zagara, and Chromie. So what does the Falstad ban do to that? Is it...
Yeah, okay.
Is there a possibility that Gale Force can still run it with something else? Can they run it with Dahaka?
It was the only variable... All right, so how that composition was built was the Chromie was for the defensive 3-2. The 2 globals pressured up on top. You rotate, then you pressure through on bottom. The core of it is you have to have 2 globals. That's almost a must. And the other core is you have to have solid defenses. The Muradin was best, but could be replaced. Man, they're even going to first pick it even without the Falstad. So then do you Dahaka is my thought. Because the globals are must.
No, they feel the Muradin is the other must from that.
Okay, because Muradin feels like the most replaceable to me. He does feel, maybe not, I don't know actually, because then they backdoor the shrines with the Muradin.
Yeah, because the Muradin, Chromie, and Lucio are the backdoor here, like you said, and highly escapable. He would constantly just jump on the point because that stalled the superstar style of, we're going to counter push. Oh no, we have to go back and get this beacon. Crap, we have to go do it again.
My only argument is, like, I feel like Tyrael can do that about as well. A lot of what you want out of the Muradin, obviously he's not as single target tanky and maybe not as survivable on his own, but he does have the mobility and he's got the scouting that they were using him for.
But you are hoping that a player who is new to the warrior role can play both of those.
That's a good point. It is a little bit more difficult there. But now with the direction Gale Force is gone, they probably aren't going to get 2 globals. It just seems unrealistic. So we'll see how they can work it up.
2 Brightwings in one day? Heaven.
You know, I think that's...
Where's she at?
I think that's yet to be found. You're just gonna venture? I think she's actually on the side. Yeah, we got the camera shot down there. I genuinely thought you were gonna take off the mic for a moment there and just be like, find the Brightwing.
Oh, she's too far away.
Okay, so Brightwing global to match that of what Gale Force has been doing. It'll help be able to stop the bleeding, hurts the team fight, and really cripples the kind of Gul'dan, you know, healing strategy you want.
This. Gale Force is banning Dahaka, possibly hovering.
So then they don't think it's 2 globals. 1 global's enough. Zagara plus 1 other in her lane can provide enough pressure that they actually think that only 1 was needed.
How would Illidan,
either that or they Zeratul it.
How would Illidan fit in?
Illidan would do okay, but he has no global until post 10 like Zagara, so it doesn't come online as quick. It doesn't have as safe as tools for the globals either. So worse than most, but not terrible because he can. At least he's semi-mobile. I think I like Zeratul the most as a backup for that. Yeah, there it is. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. And then the Malfurion. The reason Zeratul is so good at that is because not only he can do that backdooring like Murdic can and the double threat that you're going to want, but then more than anything, he has really good laning phrase in between. He makes you ask more questions about the rotations of Gale Force when you end up picking that up. And then an Anubarak Illidan on the side of Naventic. So we don't even get to see if the Illidan was the direction as the secondary global, if that could ever be a thing. because it was taken. It probably wasn't because Goku, or not Goku, excuse me, Fan on the Zeratul being picked up. It probably wasn't. But I do like knowing for sure to see what is the thought process of these teams. Sadly, it's going to be gone unless somehow an ETC with stage dives picked here.
So what's the replacement for Chromie? Kael'thas.
Kael'thas makes the most sense. Defensively, his wave clear is really, really good. He can poke at a range much like Chromie can, and Brightwing just flat out cannot heal a Kael'thas damage. It's just not there.
Even with Zarya shields to help?
It's a safety net to be able to have the Zarya shields. It's like, yeah, it can stop one rotation, but KT's going to have so many, and you're just going to have too low of healing most of the time to be able to peel away from that. In actual team fights, the Naventic composition should be okay as long as Illidan provides the proper amount of threat. I feel like that's going to be Zuna on the Illidan for sure in this game.
So we know that Gale Force eSports probably will run a 2-3 landing setup.
Yes.
How does Naventic even deal with that? What would you say is going to be the separation of heroes for Naventic?
So Naventic has the option to either commit to a 3-2 to match it, or they go for a 4-1 and they accept that the split push is going to happen. The problem with this strategy is when you accept the split pushing happening, Zagara only becomes a big problem until the forts actually open up. So if you can stop that and be successful before, it's ideal. It's just, I don't know if Naventic's willing to take that risk because they really just want to kind of stall out the game, get 10, and then do Illidan things to the weak team fighting of Gale Force with the Zagara pickup. It just, ideally Naventic, honestly, I think they should just run a 1-4. They have a really insane 1-4 and just take the pressure. Illidan will get pushed up on top. Whip-de freaking do. Just let it happen and push out on bottom, but keep pushing like we saw Superstars try in response to this comp.
Team Naventic is trying to do what nobody has yet been able to do, which is defeat Gale Force eSports strategy on Braxis Holdout with Zagara. Do they have the right tools? We find out right now. We're heading into game number 1 on Braxis Holdout.
Here in the blue is Gale Force eSports. Akaface is going to be playing the Malfurion. Equinox on to the Muradin. Going to be anchoring all game, getting the scout. Mike Udall, in fact, is going to play the KT. Crowan is always playing the Zagara. And last year, we were going to have Fan on his Zeratul.
The members of Team Naventic. Kenma playing Brightwing. Anubarak played by B-Kid. Next up, Zuna playing Illidan. Big Impact playing Gul'dan, trying to do what he can with Horrifies versus the composition of Gale Force. And finally, Tomster will be playing Zarya.
So the laning matchup here for Gale Force is going to be the Zagara and Zeratul pressuring out on top with the 3-man defensive up bottom. What we'd expect, Naventic is forfeited to the 1-4, so they're going to try and look to apply this pressure on bottom. Man, Gale Force is actually... Oh, wow. Gale Force is actually going to commit all 4 members down on bottom, leaving Zagara to solo up on top. Illidan's a very good 1v1er. So I feel like fans should be trying to apply a bit more pressure up on top.
May just trying to make sure that he stays out until he feels like he has a definite kill, so that it scares Illidan back from getting too aggressive for or against Zagara. Similar in the bottom.
The 4-man of Naventic so far has been able to do work, as we see. Getting the damages out there, even with the roots of Akaface. It doesn't matter. They've already got 1 turret drained. They're looking for the second, below the 50% when it comes to those shots. And so things are working out for Naventic. They have already, I know this sounds weird, 1 minute and 30 seconds in this game are playing this better than every other comp, or every team so far into it.
Especially if they can get that kill on Akaface, which they do. First blood for Team Naventic. B-Kid.
Yeah, gotcha.
Jinx.
B-Kid is fine. The Infest building up on top. You know, Zagara is one of the hardest 1v1ers to deal with in the game. I realize that, I feel like that's like, duh to me, but I've realized we haven't seen Zagara be meta for so long that, for anybody who's not around during the beautiful era of Zagara, yeah, she is the solo. She is the solo in the game. Whenever she gets ahead, she's by far one of the most difficult to be able to deal with here. Naventic, though, with the pressure they've applied on bottom so far, is 50-50 with GFE. And again, that's something no other team has managed to experience yet.
Yeah, Zagara's Hunter Killer is madness to deal with. Nice polymorph. Follow-up from B-Kid on Equinox. Has Dwarf Toss, so he gets away. Zeratul trying to do what we would expect from Murden, which is just constantly harass these beacons. Try to take it away. If you take it away, amazing. Then you're going to start getting beacon progress, eking it up little by little. But if not, you force your opponents back away from sieging. And that is the name of the game.
Yeah, Murden just does Murden things, buys as much time as possible. And that's where the conversation we had with Tyrael, right? Where does Tyrael, is Tyrael mobile enough to do those things? He's less forgiving in the sense that, you know, Equinox can literally lose all of his HP and then his passive heals him back up to 50%. But beyond that, the mobility is there. You know, I can see it being a reasonable route. Good root combo onto Ken, but he's going to be able to heal up.
Fort's almost halfway down. Equinox and B-Kid trading out, but importantly, Naventic hasn't traded and moved too many people back and seeing Equinox on the point. As long as they're not giving the beacon away to Gale Force eSports, Naventic are still being able to siege and poke down this fort little by little, as well as get stacks for a big impact. He's halfway done with Pursuit of Flame.
Yeah, and that's you know, again, this is a really unique approach to this strategy. It's force fan come down to bottom, trying to threaten out B-Kid from that point. And Gale Force, it's not working out for them for the first time. It's really impressive to see that. Kenma very far out, and it cost him his life.
He will happily share the chain bomb with Tomster too. It's not needed right there. I mean, I know that Kenma has caught out in the past. It's more than a one-time deal there. But like, for instance, right there, there's nobody else up there whatsoever with him on point in melee range of Equinox. I can't even see the thought process, honestly, with that kind of save. Post 10, you can get away with that positioning because you're like, look, I can juke when, you know, with your blinks, with your teleports and everything alike. But pre-10, Brightwing is one of the easiest supports to kill, just period. If she's stunned, she's probably going to die. And unfortunately for Team Naventic, that really loses all momentum that Naventic had in the bottom lane. The beacon's been taken over. Zagara, Naventic had to control this bottom lane and do more, if not trade evenly with Crowan pushing down this fort in the top lane. Now Fan shows up. This fort is all but dead. And Gale Force eSports gets a monster of a Zerg push to boot.
They do get a monster Zerg rush, and they're going to be looking to open up the forts. We talked about Zagara post 10 once the forts are down versus without them. She plays very, very different. She can be a lot more threatening. So if Gale Force managed to get this first fort, things are going to be looking good for them. Crowan, though, up on top, gets the peel. Kenma is not. Oh, he does end up getting it there. Nice fan B step, you know. Always got to call out those. It's a 2-for-1 trade. Gale Force here has the upper hand on top. They have the upper hand on bottom. And with this drain fort, this is going to snowball the game out of control for Gale Force eSports. Can Naventic bring it back? I don't know.
Since the Zerg waves alternate which lane they push, we know that the next Zerg push will head to keep structures for Gale Force eSports. So Team Naventic being a level behind, they need to play out of their minds in the next few minutes. They have to be able to get heroic abilities. They have to deal with Gale Force eSports. Because this is where the snowball starts, Dread.
Yeah, with the level lead. Well, I mean, even more than just Gale Force's comp, right? Like, this is where we know Brax's holdout to be hell for the team who's behind.
Yeah.
This is the perfect situation of, like, the only way this gets worse is if 100 Zerg Rush is moving down your lanes this exact moment. But falling behind this far and a 2-laned map is almost always going to be extremely detrimental and difficult to come back from, especially when you don't have like the, oh, I've got global advantage and I can do this. Because if you look at Zagara versus Brightwing on the who has the better global, because we always talk about globals don't matter until you can win the 1v1. I mean, it's not even a match. Brightwing just loses infinite hard to Zagara, and Zagara goes, I don't even know why you're here. You'd have better odds passively healing the rest of your team. We also have to note that Kemo going into the cleanse means he's not going to have the shielding for Zuna that we typically see way back in the old school Brightwing Illidan comps. It will be the cleanse. It makes sense to deal with the gravity lapse and, you know, Twilight Dream Root Stormbolt. but it will make it to where, again, just that much less support in health for Zuna to play around with.
2 forts down, heroic abilities, Nidus Network. The big one for Gale Force eSports to start their endless siege of Team Naventic. Naventic close to getting their own heroic abilities, and we'll see if it is the hunt.
I mean, that'd be crazy. Honestly, if he goes the hunt, I mean, maybe they will. They might try and chase down the Zagara. If they do, it just really cripples Naventic's team fight and puts them a very macro-oriented team. And again, every time Naventic is a team that tries to focus on that, it usually doesn't pay out for them. They just are way better at team fighting than they are anything else.
They are trying to keep up with Gale Force eSports. Here's heroic abilities, Blink Heal.
Locust Swarm, no 10 for Zuna yet. Hey, he's going down bottom. It's definitely going to be a hunt then. Oh, never mind. He came back. If he was splitting, it would be like, hey, I have the global. They're going to start the fight for now. Root combo going out onto B-Kid. Takes a lot of damage. Blink Heal right into the root of Malfurion. Luckily, Kemma has the second charge. He can teleport out.
The chain bombs were a wreck for Naventic. Lots of trading out from that. Naventic. I know how to say this team name.
Big E!
He gets caught.
He gets caught out. The Dwarf Toss isolating, but B-Kid Zuna with the hunt ends up getting the pick, killing Crowan. That is 2 for 1. Gale Force pulls ahead. That time bomb is only going to kill Big Impact, so we see an even trade here.
Kenma's doing what he can. Polymorph at the perfect time. Equinox dives out, but Zuna is still there for the chase, as is Big Kid. B-Kid and Zuna get 3 kills for the 2 of Naventic.
Come out ahead, just purely based off the initiation, but now knowing the hunt is going to be a thing, we'll see if that mixes up how Gale Force approaches these team fights. 68% when it comes to the next Zerg Rush, still here for GFE, and we really still haven't seen the Zagara pressure towards bottom or anything of the like, just based on the fact that that's the first post-10, skirmish or anything we've managed to see. So we'll see if Zagara can further this, as they're going to try and get those top shots. Good job by B-Kid, pushing Fan away for a moment.
Traded out on the beacons, gravity laps, roots, B-Kid burrows, stays safe, but takes a whole lot of damage before he can get out. Gale Force eSports maintains experience advantage, edging forward to their level 13 talents.
Oh man, the one huge thing to note here is the fact that we do actually see the fact that Mana Addict was completed should allow Mike to be able to kind of, or almost completed, I guess. He's 1 away. He's so close to being able to defend himself against Zuna when he dives deep. If you can pop that Mana Addict, you still get hurt, but it puts you in a spot to where it's a lot less, oh, I'm just stunned and now I'm dead.
That's how B-Kid's probably feeling at this point, constantly being caught. The gravity laps, but it's bad that he has it. Hunt, Kenma's there too. Polymorph, Void Prison, stalls for time, but Muradin and Kildos are a long way away from this. This will be
Crowan going down. So Naventic
flying over the wall too.
Naventic keeping up in kills. They're still down the 2 forts, but they've managed to use the hunt to track down Zagara twice. Second time we've seen that heavy focus. I talked about how it hurts their team fight, but if they can get the picks like this over and over again, it's stopping everything that Gale Force wants to do with this comp. They get both the shrines. Equinox moves up casually to say thanks for the 100-0 Zerg Rush. Zagara will be up for this siege, so things are perfect for GFE so far in this game.
As long as they don't lose their Equinox tank, the Dwarf Tosses and so many resources were used to try to kill Equinox. They did force him to use Avatar, so maybe a little less strong of a push, knowing that and Void Prison are down for Gale Force eSports, but even with that, as we talked about before, taking that fort down early on is starting to pay off for Gale Force.
And I mean, the defensive capabilities in anti-sieging Naventic has, a lot of it comes down to the cooldown. Without that Horrify, they don't have nearly as much. The Hunt and Locust Swarm, all those usually dive a bit too deep to be able to confidently move through the Zerg Rush damage. So not having that Horrify really just means this is going to be a free keep, especially if they get damage out like that onto B-Kid. The Hunt goes in. No kill to be gained. Mana Addict is popped. Mikey Doll's in a terrible spot. Gets polymorphed. The gravity laps, the Twilight Dream, and they move out. They do survive, but Zuna's hungry.
Naventic were so close to getting a kill on Mike, but they might still be able to sate that hunger with more kills. Polymorph hits Equinox. They know that they're going to kill Akaface. He's trying to guide the rest of the team away. defensive Void Prison once again from fans stops the bleeding, but not before Naventic are able to get a kill. The problem is, Naventic keep getting kills, but it's Gale Force eSports who are controlling the battleground.
Yeah, it's like Gale Force is like, well, we get structures, you get the kills after we get everything done, right? Like, the keep is definitely worth that trade.
Yeah.
Gale Force see this boss, it is not worth their time to try and deal with it. Unless they get a pick on Azuna, the gravity lapse, the damage is going to be real. He chases down onto Udall. Ken goes in. Ken's out of mana. He just dropped Ice Block too. He's going to go down. Oh, man. Gale Force eSports not only pulls them off the boss, they're going to be able to get some kills.
Seeker missile, it stopped. Gale Force stopped their chase. Equinox 2, fan?
That was a clutch teleport. He keeps himself up. So Gale Force eSports does stop them from getting that boss. I thought there was no chance. And typically when you try and take a boss with an Illidan composition, much like the core, you can just take no damage. You aren't worried about, you know, how's this boss working and how much HP we can delay all day. But the fact that they moved away from the boss made that so very appealing for Gale Force eSports. And, I mean, conveniently being on Brightwing really helped out as well. You know, when you teleport in and can't teleport out, it's not going to have a good time. 16 is going to be closing in for GFE. They panned the map blue. Oh. I love these awkward... They're, like, so close yet so far from one another. Of course, he's got to break it. But when they just kind of stand there and it's like, you hang out over there, I'll hang out over here.
They're like neighbors. They're like, hey, just checking to see what you're doing. Oh, you're taking your camp, we'll get ours.
Yeah, they're like, they creep on you. They want to be involved in your life, but they don't want to be rude about it, you know?
They're just slightly like, looking over the fence, seeing what's up.
Exactly, he's trying to make sure.
What kind of lawn ornaments you have? Do you have any, what are they, flamingos out?
Yeah, or you got like one of those little gnomes. Is that the kind of, you know?
No, there's no Chromie. Chromie was banned.
Yeah, that's a good call. Also, you got to consider the fact that, like, what if they just mowed their lawns in circles versus squares? Like, that's something you should know before you move in next to somebody, right?
Is that a thing?
Yeah, it is a thing. Oh my gosh, tell me you're not one of those.
I did not know that.
If you had to choose, oh man, that root. The gravity lapse.
B-Kid.
He burrows, he's fine.
Kenma's here with the heals.
But the double shrine capture for GFE for now. Zuna got that bottom shrine. Equinox doing what Murden can do best, casually walk into 4 people and lose no HP.
Probably going to see the hunt come up, and if they do so, Zeratol's in the bottom. Here comes the hunt on to Crowan. He has caught the Zagara in the back. Mass chaos breaking out. B-Kid trying to get a kill on Akaface, who drops Twilight Dream. Zagara has been taken out. Burrow from B-Kid. The Beatles! Not
today. They got the heals off. Meanwhile, Equinox is casually healing up with that healing static so very well. Fan getting damage onto Ken, gets the Vorpal, locks it in. B-Kid, or Big Impact, is so low on mana, but he dives onto Mike Udall. Zuna trying to get the chase down, no evasion left. He ends up going down 3 for 2 here. Gale Force will pick up B-Kid, or Big Impact B-Kid. Names are hard. 4 for 2. Gale Force here has the control. Man, they're just adding salt here.
Watch for the B-steps.
That was not worth the void.
Oh.
They just really didn't like B-Kid at that point in time. They were like, they must all die.
100% Zerg Rush now heading toward the bottom keep, the only remaining keep for Team Naventic. Crone and Equinox making sure that there is no extra time to be able to defend either. Not everybody is up from Team Naventic, but once they are, they will have Horrify. Naventic are down to their final resources, Dread.
They very much are, and the Zerg Rush are here saying, what's up, 40k HP, what are you gonna do about it? Void not up for 53 seconds would help when it comes to the core. Twilight Dream, only 6 away. This is gonna be a absolute, man, I thought for sure we would see Naventic try and move up, try and get a chase, but they are going to passively get the clear. We don't have a boss up. Or we do? I don't remember the status we left the map. No boss was captured. So it should still be left. That's a good point. All right, so we still have the boss here for Gale Force, but without the 20 advantage, I thought they might try and insta back into it, but they did not. 2 keeps. They're just going to let the pressure out of those catapults be enough to force Naventic to make a poor rotation.
Plus, Gale Force are ahead in experience. They're obviously ahead in the battleground control too, so they don't have to make any of those risky plays. Just try to get 20, keep the siege going in multiple lanes where they can. Get ready for the next Zerg fight. Close it out.
Close it out. It's all up to Zuna, whether or not Zuna can dive onto Crowan and actually get the pick. But to be honest, after watching the last team fight, I just feel like it's very unlikely because Gale Force approached that fight almost as bad as it could have been. Based on the fact that when Zuna goes in and dives on, if you're playing solo queue ever and you're into an Illidan, do not run away from your team. That is the last place you want to run. You always want to run to wherever the rest of your team are. So even if you die, you get so much threat onto the Illidan. But the fact that Anu Barak went for its own 2 targets, and they split. Then Illidan went for Zagara. Zagara left him into the 1v1. It's about as good as she's going to get when looking at their composition, and they still weren't able to come away on top.
Naventic are looking for it. Phase shifts there. Get the vision. Expulsion zone hits the point. Gravity lapse. Nubarak blown up. Twilight Dream is stalled out for a few more seconds. Zuna going for anybody he could possibly get his hands on, but Ice Block's already been used from Kenma, and he'll get taken out. Zuna versus Fan.
Fan wins. I mean, whether or not you want to call that
Twilight Dream.
Yeah, thanks for the B-steps there coming out from Fan. 4 members dead. A clean wipe here as one Horrify is what separates Gale Force eSports away from winning this game. I think the Stormbolt might be the good old kicker there. 5-0. That is going to be a GG. Gale Force eSports once again wins with Zagara on Brax's holdout and takes the lead in this series 1-0.
Once again, you could see where Team Naventic was going, just like with Superstars. You saw the game plan, but the execution still favoring Gale Force eSports.
I mean, I feel like a lot of it, at least in the laning department, I'm going to still put it on Ken. Like, just, you know, 6 deaths on Brightwing, twice as much as every other player on this team. You have 2 teleports and an ice block, not even counting your passive. That just can't happen. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we've seen it time and time again, but it hits a point where it's just done with seeing it. And that game was enough for me to just be like, the momentum was lost in the laning phase because he died, then he came back, and he was dead again. And then to die that many times in an Illidan composition type team, I know they weren't winning, so high deaths are not uncommon, but a lot of them, almost all of them, were just poor positioning, not thinking about what you're doing.
Well, Kenma has been playing a lot more Malfurion and Lucio lately, so maybe just not getting the practice needed with Brightwing. So unfortunately,